Hello everybody and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. I know a lot of you are waiting for a bunch of new comparisons to come out, and that's great. I have 3 of them in the works. I'm just running into a couple issues with the dealerships. Anyway, today we're going to be discussing if I think the Genesis brand can succeed or not. If you don't know what that is, that's that brand that Hyundai launched as a spin-off of their original Genesis sedan. They took that nameplate and turned it into a... Dude, I knew something dumb was going to happen. Okay, hold on. Give me a second here. So the Genesis brand was started in 2017. They actually announced that they were going to be doing it in 2015. But the G80, I believe, was their first model, and that came out in 2017. And currently the brand's got 3 models. It's the G70, G80, G90. G90 is like what replaced the Hyundai Equus, if you guys remember that sort of weird one-off sedan they made. And that's the flagship model. The G80 replaces the Hyundai Genesis, and then the G70 is a new model, and it's sort of targeting like the 3 Series Audi A4 ATS-V, or well, ATS, I guess, segment, the luxury car segment. So that's sort of the intro to the company. The Genesis G70 won the Motor Trend Car of the Year award in 2019. The cars are, at a minimum, adequate, you could say. One thing I want to say just before I get into the details of why I think it will or won't succeed. Starting a car company is extremely difficult. The car industry in general is 10 times as competitive as most other industries in terms of starting a company. You can see how Tesla's struggling with it currently. You can see how Scion struggled with it its entire life until they shuttered that brand. And you can see how established brands are even having a tough time. It's a very rough time to be entering the market right now, and we're going to get into that in a second. So Tesla just turned a profit, and they've been around for ages compared to Genesis. Then again, Scion, like I mentioned, came around, it was 2003 or something when they were launched, and even though they sold in volume for a long time, Toyota said, no, it's not worth it, and they closed it. So let's see if Genesis can be the one that breaks the pattern, I should say. Hyundai spun off Genesis into a new brand for a couple reasons that I could identify. First, luxury car makers have much better profit margins than traditional non-luxury car makers like Chevy or Ford. Mercedes-Benz, Audi, they're making way more per car than any other manufacturers, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai. Hyundai realized that their margins super small, and every other manufacturer, pretty much every other manufacturer, I should say, besides Kia, the sister company, has a luxury brand spin-off. So Toyota has Lexus, Honda has Acura, Nissan has Infiniti, etc., or they're just standalone luxury brands like Mercedes-Benz. That company wanted to diversify its interests with the luxury segment, and that's why I think that was one huge reason why they decided to start the Genesis car company. Also, according to their website, Genesis and Equus buyers had been asking for their own individual brand. Well, first off, Equus did not sell in numbers. To this day, if I see an Equus, I'm like, wow, there's an Equus, There were more Genesises sold, but the issue with that I can see is, so you're pulling from the sample of people that have bought Equus and Genesis models. How many of them are there actually? It's kind of a small sample. Sure, they may want their own car company, but does the American public want a Hyundai luxury brand? We're going to get into that later. And those are what I would say are the 2 reasons, or at least one of them according to Hyundai, and one of them is what I would think that why they want to start that luxury car manufacturer. All right, so let's start with the things that are going well for the Genesis brand. So the first, there's not necessarily a lot of numbers for me to compare with in terms of sales in their first couple of years, but from what I can tell, they're selling about 1,200 to 2,300 cars a month, and the sales are growing. So that's good. You like to see that growth. You like to see, I guess, some sales, any sales at all. And it's hard for me to compare. I tried to look up Scion's first couple of years. But again, Scion's going to sell in volume compared to a luxury manufacturer like Genesis. I tried to look up Tesla, and I didn't get accurate sales numbers back to when they were first rolling out the Model S. And that's what I really wanted to know was when the Model S came out, what were the sales like? And that is luxury, but again, that's different. That's electric. So I don't have a direct competitor to compare Genesis to. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the sales numbers are good enough right now. So that's one thing that they have that's going for them that's good. Let's see. The second thing that I think is going really well for Genesis, they seem to have the good product. Like I said, the G70 won Motor Trend's Car of the Year. And I think the G80 and G90 are pretty good models. I know the Tau 5.0 liter V8 is actually a unique engine. And I do think that's a very, very cool engine. It's got a lot of power, and it's smooth and it's naturally aspirated, which is sort of this old luxury, but we'll get to old luxury in a second. So And then I think their turbo 4 and 6-cylinder engines are adequate in terms of like compared to, for example, Cadillac, like the 2.0T and the ATS. The engines are comparable. I think they're good enough, but I don't think it's going to be matching any, BMW turbo 4s, inline 6s, probably not on the same level as Audi. And I know Mercedes-Benz has been struggling with their turbo 4 cylinders. But anyway, the engines are okay. The chassis, I feel like, has been getting better. Hyundai and Kia, classic struggle for them. Chassis dynamics, I think they've gotten it better. Which brings me to my next point, which is that they've poached a bunch of people from Volkswagen Group. So they've got people from Volkswagen. They got Peter Schreier for design. They've got people from Volkswagen, Audi, Bentley, Bugatti, Lamborghini. So it's a strong team that they have. So if there were to be success, these are the people you need to have it. I do think that's something that they have that's going well for them. And I think that's why their chassis development has maybe been more in line with what you would expect from a luxury manufacturer, maybe the Germans, or especially Cadillac. They've had very good chassis dynamics recently, and so those are things that are going well. The other thing that I would say is definitely going well is, so Genesis is again a spin-off of the Hyundai Kia parent motor company, and so they have access to all of that large company's cash and capital, and then especially the parts bin and the platforms if they needed to use it. That's a good thing that, like, for example, Tesla didn't have. Tesla's everything is from scratch. That's why maybe they were struggling more. And so that's what a part of Genesis that I think is going to aid in their success and give them the best chance of maintaining sales and then becoming a full-fledged luxury brand. Now let's get to the things that are standing in the way of their success, and we're going to try and decide if the things that are going well outweigh the things that are going not so well. So let's check these out. So the first thing I noticed when I walked on the Genesis dealership in my town was that it is directly next to and sort of a part of the Hyundai dealership, which to me is a big no-no. When you are a budget car company, I hesitate to call them budget. When you're just a traditional car company, Nissan, Honda, Chevy, Toyota, launching a luxury brand, you don't want that association in there anymore. You don't want the association from the luxury brand to the non-luxury brand. You want them separate. And so they need to be, as expensive as it will be, to guarantee true success, they need to separate the Hyundai and Genesis dealerships. They need to be unrelated. People shouldn't know that Genesis is the Hyundai luxury car because they don't. The name Hyundai luxury car is it means nothing to people, and it doesn't. If anything, it makes it sound cheap or not real. And so they need to separate those dealerships. As expensive as that is, it's got to happen for people to take it seriously. And it's a status symbol. A luxury car is a status symbol, and Hyundai has no status. And nothing against Hyundai, great cars. If you're looking for one, you can go buy one. But the Genesis brand needs to separate itself as a status symbol from the Hyundai Motor Company. And that's, I think, one big thing that's standing in their way in terms of the dealers. And then from a marketing standpoint, they need to stop targeting. From a marketing standpoint, Genesis needs to stop targeting like Cadillac and even BMW, Audi, Mercedes. You're launching a new brand. What you're worried about right now is getting your name out there, brand awareness. And if you're trying to come in and price skim everybody else in the luxury segment, it's not going to work, I don't think. They want to be targeting, you're going to hear me bring up Tesla a lot. And the reason I'm bringing up Tesla a lot is because it's being brought up a lot in the automotive industry in the first place right now. I mean, they're making waves with everything from just the original Model S to the X to the 3 to now the Cybertruck, even the Roadster and the semi-truck. And you can love them or hate Tesla, but they're doing something that is getting attention, and even whether it's Elon Musk being crazy on Twitter, they're getting attention. And any publicity is good publicity. So what Genesis needs to be doing is targeting the likes of like Tesla. Because when you're launching a luxury brand, you need a wow factor. You need something that's going to snatch people from that old luxury, those the big S-Class, the A8, the CT6 if it was still being made. You need to poach people from those car companies, but you don't want to target them because people have their preferences already, and you need to come in with something new because you are a Hyundai luxury brand. You need to come in with something amazing to get people's attention. You need to get people riled up. They want a Genesis. They want to buy a Genesis. Hey, what car is that? What car is that? You need that wow factor. There is no wow factor. Starting with the styling, there's no wow factor. So look at the G70, the G80, G90. They're not bad looking cars. They're just decently attractive, but that's not good enough. Decently attractive is not good enough. If I can't look at it in traffic and go, wow, what car is that? What logo is that? Get on the internet, what car did I just see? Then you're not setting yourself up for success. You need something that's polarizing, either insanely good looking, like the Audi A7 was when it came out, or even the Model S or Model 3. I understand that electric car design can be different from naturally aspirated gas cars, but you need something that's going to grab people by the balls and say, look at me. You're a brand new car company, a luxury manufacturer nonetheless. You need people to be asking, wow, what is that? You need some design that's going to get people's attention. Targeting this Audi design is not a good idea. Audis are wallflowers. They blend in with everything. And I guess there's nothing against that, but they've earned the right to make cars that are all kind of just cookie cutter Audi designs, send it out the line, send it out the line. They're not unattractive, but they've earned the right as an established luxury brand to be putting out cars that aren't necessarily the most drop-dead gorgeous, polarizing things. And Genesis needs that to happen to get the attention, to get people behind the brand. And then once you've got that loyal customer base and those big sales numbers, you can dial it back if you need to, because not everything needs to be so polarizing. But right now, when you're starting out, you need to be aggressive. When you're starting as a luxury car manufacturer, you have to be aggressive, especially with your styling. I would say the second biggest problem to this brand getting going, gaining true sales traction, is the fact that they don't have an SUV in their lineup, a single one, which sort of draws parallels to Cadillac in a way. Not that Cadillac doesn't have SUVs, they've got a ton of them. But think about what Cadillac used to do, used to do because they've discontinued a lot. So they had the CT6, they made this big, nice, decent driving, we'll say. I remember it wasn't the best chassis-wise. They made this great CT6, beautiful, big boat of a car as the flagship. In a couple years, they're saying, oh, we're going to discontinue that. It's not selling well. Their flagship model, they're discontinuing. Come to the CTS, which would be the G80's competitor, discontinuing it. I think the only one that they're holding on to as a sedan right now for Cadillac is the ATS. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading that the CTS, and it's a shame. CTS is one of my favorite cars. And so to introduce a luxury brand in America with 3 sedan models, a large sedan, a full-size sedan, and then the sports sedan 3 Series competitor, only one of them is going to sell, and it's the 3 Series competitor. And you've just introduced 2 brand new models into a market that is not looking for cars anymore. And I'm a car enthusiast. I love cars. I much prefer a sedan or a coupe or a hatch to an SUV or even a wagon to an SUV because I like them. But guess what? Americans don't. Americans don't want cars. And I think they should have planned out their product strategy better than what they did, because right now you're selling sedans to people who don't want sedans, especially big sedans. So I think that was a huge oversight on the part of the company, and I think they're coming a little late to the game with the it's called the GV70, so their naming nomenclature is G models are sedans, sort of like Infiniti has the Q50, 60, and then the sedans are QX50, QX60. Genesis is going to be G70, 80, G90, and then GV70, GV80, and I think the GV80 is on the horizon. It's going to come out soon. I think they're working on the GV70, but you needed to have those at the onset because Americans want SUVs, and so they can't rush those quick enough. They need to get those out. And so I think that's something that's standing in their way, but I'm glad to see that they are working on the SUVs because, and again, the margins on SUVs are even skyrocketing compared to cars at this point. So I guess it's not too late for them because they're still a brand new car manufacturer trying to get things figured out. But if they were established, if they had been around for a little bit, introducing them by this point in time, it would be, the market's already saturated with them. So that's definitely a struggle for them. And then I guess the final piece of advice I'll give them. So I mentioned this price skimming strategy, which is what they're doing. They're trying to undercut current competitors, current luxury competitors, undercut their prices, and then offer at least the same or more features. That pricing strategy works very well for budget cars, Kia and Hyundai. That works great because you're looking to not spend as much money and you want the most features available. That's why Korean cars offer such good value for their money. But guess what? Luxury car buyers in America, they're buying luxury to spend money. I mean, sure, they're not looking to just be blowing money, but they're buying a luxury car in the first place. They're looking for the status of it. They're looking for the symbol. And they're not as much worried about the value. That's why when I compared the Audi Q5 to like the Range Rover Velar and the Jaguar F-Pace, even though they were the same price range, the Audi was offering way more just because the Land Rover and Jaguar are a bigger status symbol. So this strategy that Genesis is using to offer a better value proposition, if people are buying luxury goods in the first place, they're not as worried about the value proposition anyway, because they're looking to spend that type of money. I do think that as a brand new manufacturer, you shouldn't be matching your competitor's price. You need to get your name out there before you're charging Mercedes-Benz level money for your Hyundai, essentially. So I agree with the idea of initially having things be a lower price, but I don't think that they should be, I think that they should be offering, I guess it's a bit of a conundrum because I can't say they should be offering less features because then it's not competitive in the class. But at the same time, you're opening it up to being the rental grade luxury manufacturer, and I don't think that's what they want. I think they want to make a full-fledged luxury brand. And so I think that's a danger to them. But because people know that Genesis is gussied up Hyundai, in essence, maybe they're unwilling to spend Benz level money on it. So I guess I shouldn't comment on their pricing strategy, but I think it's going to pose a problem when they want their cars to represent status and wealth, because if they keep these pricing strategies long enough, eventually people are going to realize, oh, well, it's just a Genesis, you know, the equivalent to like a Buick or something, you know, that mid-tier sort of in between a regular manufacturer and a full-blown luxury manufacturer, kind of like a premium, sort of where Cadillac used to occupy before they started taking things seriously, that premium brand. They want the full thing. That's why they started with the G90 right out of the bat. And so I think that could potentially pose a problem for them too. And I would love to hear, by the way, I'd love to hear anybody's comments on this. I think this is a fascinating topic. Not very often is it that a brand new manufacturer comes around, so I'd love to hear your guys' input on this. And I guess the final verdict on it, I think the biggest pro outweighs the biggest con, and the biggest pro is that Genesis has all of Kia and Hyundai's resources as a company to rely on, and it's pretty hard to at least fail immediately when you have that kind of resources to rely on. The people running the company know what they're doing. That outweighs the two biggest detriments to the company right now, which is they don't offer any SUV and that their Hyundai dealers are not separate from their Genesis dealers. At least the one that I know is not. I guess I didn't look into more, but and so the verdict would be that I do think they're probably going to end up succeeding, especially as younger people who've been buying Hyundai models and enjoying them are graduating into more disposable income, but they don't want to give up that loyalty that they have to the Hyundai company. They can maybe possibly move into a G70. And so, yeah, I do think in the end, long-term Genesis has the potential to be successful. And I would not be surprised if they saw that success growing in the coming years as they're releasing SUVs. So I put it at 80-20. They make it. Genesis makes it. 20% they don't. I wouldn't be surprised if one day I hear, yeah, Genesis was just the money pit and we shuttered it and we maybe bringing back the Hyundai Genesis, or maybe they're done with luxury cars in general. But I do think that it's at least worth the effort initially for Hyundai Kia, I should say, to take up this venture. I do think that that was something they needed to expand to. I don't think they went about it the right way, but long term, it's probably going to end up being successful. So let me know what you guys think of this in the comments below. Let me know if you guys like this video format. I'm really excited to do this, and I want to do more. I want to look at why Americans love SUVs and hate sedans. I want to look at other stuff like that as well. I want to look at if Lincoln will ever be successful, that kind of thing. And if you have any ideas that you want me to talk about, anything like that, feel free to send it in the comments. I want this to be more of like a discussion video than the comparison test videos. Make sure you go head over to my community tab on my channel. You can vote on what kind of videos you want to see with this, what kind of comparison tests you want to see, that kind of thing. And again, if you like this video, feel free to subscribe, like. Beyond that, let me know what you think. Thanks.